Hello everybody and welcome to another light novel review. In this video I'm talking about volume number 2 of Inori's light novel series, I'm in Love with the Villainess. This one has artwork by Hanagata. If you want to learn more about the publication of this book in English or pick up your own copy, I'll have links in the description down below. In volume 2 of I'm in Love with the Villainess, main character Rei continues her journey through the otome game Revolution. Of course, in volume number 1, Rei was a woman from Japan who found herself inhabiting the body of the main protagonist in the otome game Revolution. But the thing with Rei is that she had no interest in the male leads of said otome game. She herself is actually, well, in love with the villainess, Claire Francois. In volume number 1, we saw a rising escalation of dissatisfaction and eventually conflict between the commoner class and the nobility class. In volume number 2, that tension continues and we have new characters introduced, new situations and complications introduced that all eventually lead to the title Revolution, the whole purpose of the whole thing. But thing about this volume is that it's interesting in that it starts presenting some serious wrinkles in Rei's plans. Rei herself starts to doubt her actual knowledge of Revolution, or starts to worry that perhaps this world, even from her own interference, has gone a bit off the rails, because there are some pretty hefty events that go on that she herself is like, that was never ever in the game. And of course we see that she has put so much effort into trying to ensure that she and Claire survive the revolution, and that beyond the revolution that they can actually live comfortably. But as these complications continue to increase and as these uncertainties about the future continue to pile up, Rei finds herself really wondering if she's done enough to allow them to just even survive. I'm in Love with the Villainess Volume 2 is a considerable step up from Volume number 1. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed Volume number 1, but Volume number 2 just seems to deliver far more on its complexities of plot, its character development, and in particular the character journey of Claire Francois. And in volume number 1, where Rei's behavior often seemed a little bit stalkerish, creepy-ish, and so forth, that is toned down considerably in this volume, becoming much more of sort of a consensual banter between herself and Claire. And because of Claire's development and growth as a character in this volume, it becomes much more apparent and understandable why it is that Rei has such strong feelings for this girl. She's not just some one-dimensional villainous character that's there to make life difficult for the main character. There's a lot more going on with her, and we finally get to see so much of it in this second volume. Also, the second volume has a lot of payoffs and helps to demonstrate how there have been a lot of plot threads and hints and foreshadowings throughout these books that really do pay off when we hit that final sort of revolutionary moment in the story. In fact, much like My Next Life as a Villainess, that pretty much finishes the game part of the existence in volume 2, so does I'm in Love with the Villainess. By the time we get to the end of this book, there is an ending. It does feel like we've completed the journey. I will say that there is more. There is a volume 3 and 4 beyond this book. Apparently volume 3 does begin a new arc, but in terms of the actual otome game Revolution, we do see that come to an end in volume number 2. Perhaps my one and only real complaint about this volume is just that there is a little bit of pacing inconsistencies. Pretty much in terms of structure, we have, similar to volume number 1, we have major events and they're encapsulated in each chapter. So even though it moves in a linear fashion, even though there are these little subplots and stuff that kind of you constantly feel this threat of revolution. You constantly feel this unsettling of society. Pretty much each chapter is its own story. It has its own main arc over top of it all. And some of them are most definitely fluffier than others. Some of them are paced considerably slower than others. And then we also have some that are just really emotionally gut-punching. And of course, we have much more action-packed chapters as well. When you get to the end, all of these different chapters and their disparities, it makes sense and you realize why they're important to be there. But as you're reading along in the book, I think you will find that there is definitely times where it feels like the book is pushing and pulling in terms of its intensity and the tension levels. However, as I said, with the character development going on and quite frankly, the charm of Ray and Claire's growing relationship, it's a pretty small thing and you're going to be finding yourself just continuing to burn through this book regardless. One thing that I will say truly sets I'm in Love with the Villainess apart from, most of the light novels that we have in English is that we have a main character who is gay and openly gay and says the words, "I'm gay." It isn't one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge things. It isn't one of those, well, they're only gay for this person, but they're not gay. No, we have a main character who is gay. Period. All stop. Nothing more. And there are some moments in this book with what feel like very personal tellings of experiences of being a teenager who feels that they're gay, but yet is resisting it because of fear, resisting it because of that not wanting to change their dynamic between their friends, their family, that there's that self-doubt, that even some self-loathing, and this thinking that I'll grow out of it, or it's just a phase, or it's just me being stupid, or all of these things. There's a very personal, lived feeling to this story when it's being told. And I don't know much about Inori and their background. They mention that they have a partner, which does not always mean that a person is talking about a same-sex partner, but often is used that way. And the way that this story is told, and the way that even gender dysphoria, I mean, I never thought I'd be talking about that in a light novel review, given the light novels we have, but, cool, here we are. Talking about gender dysphoria, talking about transgender youth and difficulties they face, and how it can have tragic outcomes if a person is not allowed to live how they want to. I know a lot of people will probably tune out at that moment. I know that me talking about this in this review will have people go, nope, and check out. Because there seems to be a very prevalent desire in fandom to avoid any kind of topic that seems political, seems either too far left or too far right, seems politically correct. And I need to tell you, this is not that book. This is not a book that's trying to shove some agenda down your throat. It's not a book that's trying to preach to you or convert you or any of those things. This feels much more like a human being telling their story and using fantasy as a vehicle to do it, which is a very different experience. And regardless of your feelings about politics and all that, I think you need to respect a person's story and their honesty. And when you read this book and really do feel the hesitation, the fear of accepting who you are, I think you realize that it's taken a lot of courage for Inori to write this. And I don't honestly know anything about Inori's background. I don't know if they're gay. I heavily suspect they are, based on not only the feeling of truth to what they're talking, but they also refer to their partner in the afterword. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you know. But this is, I think, kind of important. And I think that we as fans need to accept that you can have that kind of content, and yet this is still like a great light novel in other areas as well. And that people are just trying to tell their story, and they're trying to say their truth and what they have lived through. And, you know, I've seen people kind of talk about Japan in a way of like, oh, it's so great because they don't have to worry about all this cancel culture and everything else. And I think that's kind of a lie that we're telling ourselves, especially after reading this book. It really does show you that there are people that are living these lives and struggling and suffering in a way that I honestly think is just relatable in general. And yeah, I mean, it really impacted me. Like, I don't, you know, like when I do these reviews, I try to keep it really middle, like not middle line. Like I always tell you guys what I think, but I really do try to not piss off anybody in the fandom. And that's mainly because my goal in this channel is to try and help people find good books to read and to let them know whether they'll like a book or not, so they don't, I mean, let's face it, money's tight. I don't want people to waste money on a book that they'll hate. And if I can just talk for 10 minutes and tell you what it's about and help you make a decision whether you'll like it or not, that's awesome. That's what I'm here for. But I kind of feel like it's important to say, like when you're talking about a book like this, that it's a really good book. And, you know, I hate to think that there will be people who won't read it because of this conception that it's somehow over political, or that, you know, it's trying to force some kind of agenda, or, you know, it's woke culture or whatever the crap. And I just really think that that's a shame, because this book deserves to be recognized, and it deserves to be checked out. And really, if the stories that are told in it were all just about heterosexual companies or companies, Jesus. If the stories told in it were all about heterosexual couples, nobody would bat an eyelash. And again, this is not something that's preaching to you. It is telling someone's life, someone's truth. And I have to respect Inori for that. And I have to respect that they've not only created a really good book with lots of good twists in the plot and different little hints dropped along the way, but that there is that sense that they are using this as a vehicle to tell their story, and a vehicle to maybe even give some hope or comfort to LGBTQ youth who would pick it up and realize that they're not alone, and that their experiences aren't unique. They aren't the only one who's gone through these things. And, you know, I think that's important. I don't think anybody should suffer, and God forbid, I don't think anybody should die just for wanting to love someone, you know, and for wanting to be loved, and for wanting to live as themselves when it doesn't hurt anybody. You know, it doesn't hurt you as a person or society if somebody else is born with male genitalia but decides that they truly want to live as a woman. It doesn't hurt you. And this is turning way more political myself. Funny that I'm like making the justification that the book isn't all that political, that it just tells as like a personal story, and I sound like I'm getting political about this. But anyway, I just think that part of the backstory that Rei delivers about her teenage years and coming to finally accept that she was gay, a lot of that had to do with being provided with fiction that basically said it was okay and that she could see herself in. And reading that really made me kind of feel like that's exactly what Inori is doing with this book, is that they are presenting a really well-written fantasy isekai light novel, but also delivering a message that it's like other people have lived through it and other people have suffered, and yes, even some people have not made it. But it's okay to live your life. It's okay to be who you are. And I don't think that's a bad message. And I think it's a message that honestly, if we could not worry about so much other garbage that's shoved in our face about how we're supposed to feel about things, I think it's kind of like something we can all relate to at differing levels. You know, the journey of yourself and the journey of accepting who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be with and everything else, like that's universal. Yeah. Anyway, I don't even know, like this, it just feels like this review's gone completely off the rails and isn't even a review anymore. But I guess I kind of feel like when you're reading this and, you know, it reads so impactfully that I just kind of felt that it was important, and it's not something that I've seen in any other light novel that I've read. And even off the top of my head, I can only think that I haven't read the Bloom Into You light novels, but honestly, that seems like the only series that I could see approaching these topics. And even then, I don't know if it does. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't know if it comes right out and it's like, I'm gay, or whether it's just kind of like, well, I like you even though you're a girl kind of thing. I guess to sum it all up, it's this. I'm in love with the Villainess from a purely light novel point of view. Is a decent book with good character development and a decent, strong story that is well written and delivers by the end of the volume. From a book about an LGBTQ character trying to live her best life and talking about her life experiences and how it's helped to make her who she is, makes it important. And I mean, really, like, again, you know, if somebody asked me, like, what's a good book for LGBTQ people that, you know, in terms of light novels, like, I'm going to have to say this one over and over and over again. In any case, you know what? If you've read this one and, you know, you want to share your thoughts, feel free to put those into the comments down below. Big thanks to the people that I'm going to have rolling across the screen right now that are my YouTube members that help to support the channel directly. If you're interested in checking that out and any of the perks that are offered, you can click on there's a join button below this video. If you didn't mind my going off on a massive tangent and ranting and raving, hit that like button. Let me have a little bit of security and feedback. Anyway, for my next review, well, I'm going to be doing something very different, and that is going to be Welcome to the Outcasts Restaurant. It's a pure fantasy, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to talk for 10-15 minutes or whatever about how important it is. Hopefully I'll just be able to talk for 10-15 minutes about how it's just kind of fun and maybe a little silly. In any case, that'll be my next review. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.